Okay, today we are going to be taking a look at my cheek products. I have my blushes, my bronzers, and my highlighters. I'm going to set the blushes aside and we're going to go through these first because these are definitely smaller categories for me, and I actually don't know if we will be decluttering anything from these categories, but I do think there are a few things in my blush collection that I will want to go ahead and get rid of. Now, I do have a couple of missing products. I always do. Listen, I am rejigging the way I do my makeup storage right now, and so everything is kind of in disarray. I'd like to say that that's an unusual occurrence, but I think we all know better than that by now. The two things that I am missing is I am missing a little deluxe sized mini of the NARS Illuminator. It's the old NARS Illuminator. I don't think they make it anymore. And I think there were just a handful of uses left in this little deluxe size. And I pulled it out back in September to try to get it finished. And it has disappeared at some point between now and then. I am sure at some point I will find it, and I do intend to keep it so that I can complete it. So that may show up in my empties next month or the month after. Here's hoping. The other thing that I'm missing is a blush. It is a Salt New York Cream Tint Pro. It looks just like this, except it's a different shade. This is the shade Sunburn, and I have the shade Wine. Now, I was a little surprised because I opened up my Salt New York magnetic palette and it wasn't in there, and I have no idea what might have happened to it. And it's very confusing because that's pretty much the only magnetic palette that I have for keeping my cream cheek products in. And so I don't know where is this other one? Like, where is it? Is it just somewhere random, just in the nude, like collecting dust? That's a terrible thought. But regardless, hopefully I will find that one as well. I do intend to keep it. I love all of the Salt New York products that I have in my collection, so I intend to keep that one as well. So let's do highlighters first. So these are my highlighters, with the exception of that little NARS deluxe size. We're not going to worry about that for right now. So the first two products that I'm definitely keeping are the e.l.f. Halo Glow Liquid Filter. I have owned the Charlotte Tilbury Hollywood Flawless Filter in the past, and I actually prefer the e.l.f. Halo Glow. I find that it's a little bit more versatile because it has a little bit more coverage, which means that I enjoy it more on its own than I ever did the Charlotte Tilbury. It's also a perfectly nice liquid highlighter if that's your thing. I don't often go for a liquid highlighter, but it works very well that way. It also is nice for mixing in with other products just to give them a little bit more luminosity. So I have it in the shade 5 Medium Tan. This is a better summer shade for me, and this is the shade 3, I think. Yeah, shade 3 Light Medium. So this is more of a summer shade for me. This is more of a winter shade for me. And then the rest of the year, I can just mix them together. So definitely keeping those. Then I have this Salt New York Cream Tint Pro in the shade Beige. This is a beautiful highlighter. I think it's probably the most natural highlighter that I have in my collection. It looks very metallic when you first put it on, but once you blend it out, it just becomes the most beautiful, glossy. If you look real close, there's no visible shimmer on the skin. I can't see any shimmer. It is just this beautiful, balmy glow. And unlike the other Salt New York products that I have in my collection, which are the Sneaky Balm and then the Lip and Cheek Tint, this one actually sets down much better than either of those products. So if you are someone who really does not like any kind of tackiness on your cheeks, I think you would still love this product. It has all of the benefits of a really, really nice balm product without that particular deficit. Look at that glow. Gosh, that's gorgeous. Love this product. Definitely hanging on to it. All right, next I have 2 powder highlighters. Actually, I have 3 powder highlighters. So this is the Laura Geller Baked Gelato Swirl in Gilded Honey. This is just such a pretty highlighter. Now it is blinding. Do you see that? Oh my gosh. That is, if you want to be seen from space, that's a way to do it. Really, really pretty soft gold shade. I find that this also blends out really, really well. Definitely more of a pronounced highlight than the Salt New York, but still so pretty. Love this product. This next product is actually very much like the Laura Geller. They're close enough that if I had a larger collection of highlights, I might feel compelled to declutter one of them, but I love them both, so I think I'm going to keep them both. This is the Nabla Skin Glazing Glass Skin Finish Glow Powder in the shade Amnesia. It is also a beautiful baked formula. It is actually very, very similar to the Laura Geller. Let me swatch them next to each other. I feel like this is slightly cooler and this is slightly more golden. I also feel like the Laura Geller is slightly more metallic, where the Nabla is a little bit of a softer, smoother formula. But both of them blend out so pretty on the skin. So that is the Nabla right there. And that is the Laura Geller. If my collection was larger and I felt more of a need to pare it down, I would definitely feel like I needed to get rid of one or the other. In which case, I think I probably declutter the Laura Geller before I declutter the Nabla. But as it is, I have a very small highlighter collection. And so I'm just going to go ahead and keep both of them because I love them both. I also have this little mini of the Becca highlighter in the shade Rose Gold. This is much more, now this is shattered, by the way, so I'm going to be very careful opening it and swatching it for you. I really need to repress this, but this is much more of a blush topper for me than it really is a straight highlighter. It has a little bit more base color to it. So if I turn my hand to the side, do you see how you really see that pink a lot more? That's not always super flattering on my skin tone, especially when I am at my palest. It's a lot less noticeable during the summer when I'm a little bit deeper. And then this works better as a straight highlight, but I use it most often as a blush topper. Well, I'm going to go ahead and get the other highlighters off there so you can see it a little bit better. I actually have this rolled into my Throwback 30. Yeah, there you go. You can see that a little bit better, but you can also see the kind of this darker base color that it has. Really, really pretty, incredibly smooth. I don't feel like this makes my texture just wild and out of control. I really enjoy this one. Gonna keep it as well. Now, to be honest, the only highlighter that I have here in front of me that I don't like is this one. This is the Cover FX Custom Enhancer Drops in the shade Rose Gold. I don't like it, y'all. I don't like it. Now, it looks like I would. I actually rolled this into my 50 Shades of Brown to use as a body illuminator. That's how I was hoping to use it when I picked it up. And when I blend this out on the back of my hand here, you would think that this would make the most killer body illuminator. How gorgeous is that? It also has that little kind of bronzy, rosy base color that I find so flattering, especially when you have a little bit of a tan. But there is a drawback. The moment you go out under natural sunlight, this whole thing sparkles like Edward Cullen. It is not a look that I really, really enjoy. If it showed under sunlight like this just glossy, sheeny gorgeousness, I would love this. I would be so happy with it, but it doesn't. It turns into 1,000 sparkles and I just don't care for it at all. Now, I really ought to declutter this. The thing is, I have it rolled into my 50 Shades of Brown. And at this point with 50 Shades of Brown, I think the chances of me meeting my goals on that project are actually, they're not great. They're already not great, but I think they're even worse if I drop a product and roll in a new one. So even though I really dislike this, I am determined to find a way to use it. I think I might actually just need to mix it in with a body lotion, which always kind of felt a little bit like a little bit of a panning cheat to me, is mix it in with a body lotion. But at the same time, I just can't imagine myself using it any other way. And I do think a body lotion should be able to dilute the sparkle enough where I don't feel like it looks really, really obnoxious on the skin. If I could get this to where it was a much more dispersed sparkle, I think that that would be much more doable for me than the absolute vampire nightmare that this is straight out of the bottle. So yeah, I'm going to be hanging on to this one as well. So those are my highlighters. I think I'm actually going to take these two e.l.f. Halo Glow liquid filters out of my highlighter category because I don't use them as straight highlighters as often as I use them as sheer coverage products. So I think I'm going to take these out of my highlighter category and put them into my foundation category, because I do feel like that's slightly a more accurate classification for how I usually use these. And this means my foundation count, which I think was at 18, will go up to 20. So I will have 20 foundations in my collection after this point. And then my highlighters, I have 5 highlighters here. And then with the inclusion of that NARS illuminator that I imagine I will probably find here eventually, that brings us to 6 highlighters. I am perfectly happy with that. I'm not a huge highlighter wearer, and so I don't really feel the need to add to this category, but nor do I feel like this is overkill for me. I don't feel like I really need to pare this back at all. So let's take a look at the bronzers. Now, like all of my cheek products, these are not all of them. These are simply all of the singles I had. That holds for the highlighters, and it also holds for the blush. I have more of those types of products in my face palettes category, but I'm going to be going through and decluttering my face palettes separately. So these are just the singles we're contending with. Right now I have 6 single bronzers in my collection. I actually finished a whole bronzer this year. I'm very, very proud of myself. It was my Milani Silky Matte bronzer in the shade 02 Sunkissed. Probably my favorite bronzer of all time. Now, as much as I am not a highlighter person, I am definitely a bronzer person. So let's go through these and see if I can bear to part with any of them. Let's go through the powder ones first. The first one is my Flower Heat Wave Luminous Bronzer in the shade Sunrise L1. I also picked this up at TJ Maxx for $3.99, which makes it even more beautiful in my opinion. I actually really, really do love this bronzer. It has got a hint of rosiness in it that I find is very, very flattering on my cool olive skin tone. I'm going to try to fit all of these onto the back of my hand so we can compare them. But it's also a little bit desaturated, which I also find very flattering on my skin tone. It is a luminous bronzer. It has a beautiful, slightly glowy, but not sparkly finish. There is 0 sparkle. Next to my Milani, I think this is probably my second favorite bronzer in my collection. So definitely hanging on to that one. Next, I have this tiny little mini of the NARS Laguna bronzer. This is an old classic, although looking at it, I can't believe that we used to use, do you remember the early days of beauty YouTube when everybody was using this as a contour? I mean, I'm going to swatch it for you and you're going to see how ridiculous that is. Now, granted, I know that on a warmer skin tone, this is not going to read quite as orange as it does on my skin tone, but I don't think this was anybody's contour. Let's be honest. It's clearly a lot more golden than the Flower Beauty one is. The Flower Beauty, you can really see the rosiness in it when compared to the Laguna. However, despite the fact that there's so much yellow in this, I still do find this a pretty flattering bronzer on my skin tone. And I really, really like this particular compact. I actually have a larger version of the Laguna bronzer in a face palette. This one is just so ditty and adorable, and it is perfect for travel. I took it with me on a trip recently, and it took up basically no space at all in my bag. Love this little thing. And to be honest, when I do eventually finish this, I will probably use this to repress another bronzer specifically for travel. I love this little thing. So going to be hanging on to this one. Last powder bronzer that I have is the Kiko Milano Flawless Fusion Bronzer Powder in the shade 06. This is actually a bronzer my sister brought back from Italy for me. And so it has a special place in my heart just for that reason. But it is also a really, really pretty bronzer as well. Now this one is a good bit more subtle, I think, than the Flower Beauty is on my skin. It has more translucency in the formula, so it does require a little bit more building up. You could tell also the Laguna required a little bit of building up as well, but the Kiko requires even more. However, that makes this one really nice, especially for the wintertime when I am at my fairest. I actually still have a little bit of color left in my skin right now, but by the time, like for instance, February rolls around, I will probably be reaching for this one a little bit more. So you can see that it's not quite as yellow as the Laguna, and it's not quite as pink as the Flower Beauty. It's kind of this nice little middle ground. And yeah, I'm going to hang on to this one as well. That leaves us with our cream bronzers. Let's see if I can fit the swatches on there as well. This is my Soul Body bronzer. That's the ColourPop sister brand. This one has the most delightful coconut scent. I love it. This is a really nice bronzer. It sets down really well because it is considered a body product as well as a face product. This is in the shade medium dark. This is a little bit deep for me, so I have to really go in with a light hand pretty much whenever I use it, except for in the very middle of the summertime when I am at my deepest. Now this one, especially right now when I am a little bit more fair than I am in the summertime, is reading as more yellow. However, and this is something I don't feel like the camera is really picking up on, there is a fair amount of red in this particular shade. It's reading straight yellow on the camera, but there is some red in here, and that's why I feel like this is a lot more flattering on me than some of the other warmer bronzers that I have used in the past. Anyway, really, really love this bronzer. It smells lovely, blends out beautifully, sets down completely, and it is useful on the body as well as on the face. Really like this one, and I'm going to hang on to it. Next, I have the Revolution Ultra Cream Bronzer. There we go. This is in the shade medium. And this one is going to look a little bit more dark than even the Soul Body one, but it has this lovely, do you see that? Desaturated neutral undertone to it. This one also blends out really, really nicely. I actually think formula-wise, the Revolution actually edges out the Soul Body a little bit on the face. I think the Soul Body is superior if you can use it on the body simply because of the way it sets down so completely. The Revolution also sets down, but I don't find that it's quite as transfer proof as the Soul Body is. I don't think the Soul Body is exactly transfer proof. It's more transfer resistant, which is a good thing if you're going to be using it on your body. But you can tell it's a much more neutral tone. It doesn't have the rosiness of the Flower Beauty bronzer, but it does have that neutral tone that makes it a lot easier for this one to work on me during the winter time than the Soul Body. I do like both of them at different times of the year for different reasons, and so I'm going to keep this one as well. All right, last one. This is my Tarte Breezy Cream Bronzer in the shade Seychelles. If you were watching my 50 Shades of Brown, you know that I had this rolled in for 30 uses. So I went from having used it just a handful of times to 30 uses, and we managed to hit pan. Now, this one is a little deceptive when it swatches, okay? It's gonna look much nicer on the back of my hand, for instance, than the Soul Body. I don't know why it reads this way on camera. There is a lot more yellow in this bronzer than there appears to be here on this swatch. I have actually worn these two bronzers here side by side, this on one half of my face and this on the other half of my face. And this bronzer, even though it looks like it has a hint of rosiness in it, it looks yellow on my face. It looks yellow in a way that the Soul Body does not. And I think it's because of the Soul Body has that slight red undertone that saves it for me. This one just looks unnatural on my face. I think I can get away with it best during the summer months when I am at my deepest, because I do tend to warm up a little bit when my skin tone deepens. So this is passable for me for a couple of months out of the year. But to be perfectly honest, I don't know that I like it enough to save it for the couple of months during the summer where I could get away with it. The rest of the time, it just looks strange and unnatural on my face. But even when it does work with my skin tone, I don't love the formula. I feel like it's rather hit or miss on whether or not it's going to play nicely with the other things that I have on my face. And for that reason, I think I'm going to go ahead and declutter this. I got my uses for my 50 Shades of Brown, and now I'm going to go ahead and say goodbye. Because to be honest, if I never use this again, I'd be perfectly fine with that. It does really trip me out though, the way these swatch. This looks way more yellow. It looks orange on me is what it looks like. It really looks like this one will be more flattering, but on the face, that's just not how it translates for me. So I'm going to go ahead and declutter this one. So we're decluttering one bronzer and keeping 5. That is the final count. Last but not least, let's take a look at my blushes. First of all, let's address the Salt New York lip and cheek tints. This is the shade Sunburnt. I also have one in the shade Wine that I cannot locate right now. I have no idea where it is. I really, really enjoy both of those shades, and I intend to keep both of them. This one the name is perfect. It does give a little bit more of a kind of a toasty sunburn look to the cheeks, and Wine has more of that cool berry tone to it. I love them both. These are beautiful formulas. They're comfortable on the cheeks and the lips. Because they are comfortable on the lips, they do stay a little bit tacky on the cheeks as well. If that is not something that you enjoy, it's probably a product to stay away from. I really enjoy the sheerness and translucency of these and just the balmy glow that they give the cheeks. It's just really, really pretty. So I love both of my lip and cheek tints from Salt New York, and we'll be keeping them both. Another very balmy product that I very much enjoy is the Pat McGrath. What is this called? Pat McGrath Legendary Glow Color Balm. This is in the shade Divine Rose. I love this formula. It is just the glossiest, juiciest. The color is beautiful too. I'm surprised that I have not yet picked up more colors. I've been trying really, really hard not to pick up any more blushes this year as I work on some other ones because it's kind of an inflated category for me. I don't really need any more blushes. But do you see how juicy and gorgeous that is? Now this, like the Salt New York, does not set down significantly. So if tacky cheeks are your nightmare, you probably want to stay away from this one as well. The other gripe that I have with this product is the packaging. This is 100% ColourPop packaging, which I am not a fan of. I don't even have a magnetic close here. This came open in my purse once. I was pretty upset about it. The reduction in the packaging quality, I think, is reflected in the price. I believe that these are $29, which were a lower price point than I expected from Pat McGrath when they were first released, and that may make up for the packaging deficits. However, economy is not really what I go to Pat McGrath for. I go to Pat McGrath for makeup that makes me feel super special and luxurious, and this this packaging is not it. However, I enjoy the product itself so much that I'm willing to overlook that. So keeping this one. I have a few things from AOA Studios. That's the brand that Shop Miss A carries. Actually pretty impressed with most of the AOA Studios products that I have experimented with, but there are a few that I think I would like to let go. This is one of them. This is the I Heart Dew blush drops. These are a gel stain, and I used to have 2 of these. I decluttered one to a friend, and I was I hung on to this one because there's hardly any product left in here, and I figured I might as well say goodbye to it as an empty rather than as a declutter. But at the same time, I don't want to use the rest. There's probably, I don't know, there's probably just a 1/4 of a bottle left in here, but I don't want to use it. The color is really pretty. This is in the shade Dolly. It is a really pretty dusty mauve, which is definitely right up my alley. But the problem with this formula is that it is so sheer that you just have to layer it and layer it and layer it. I have to use an enormous amount of product just to get it to show up on my skin tone. Let me show you what I'm talking about here. That's quite a lot of product, okay? And this is a little bottle. It blends away almost to nothing. Do you see that? I would have to put several more layers on here to get any real color payoff on my skin tone. It is just so incredibly subtle. It is a stain, so it is pretty long wearing, and it is a pretty color once it's layered up, but I find it so obnoxious to use that I don't. Yes, I would be happier to get rid of this as an empty than as a declutter, but I just cannot be bothered to use the rest of it. So I'm going to go ahead and declutter this. Next, I have these 2 AOA Studio Color Flush Liquid Blushes. I have 2 colors. One is in Golden Oak and the other is in Mahogany. Golden Oak is this pretty kind of cool, vivid pink, and then Mahogany is more of this berry color. Of the 2, now they're very pigmented, but they actually do blend out really, really nicely. So that is Mahogany blended out. Such a pretty shade. and this is Golden Oak blended out. I do find these are pretty long wearing as well. Now, I think I'm going to go ahead and declutter Golden Oak and keep Mahogany. Mahogany is definitely much more of a color that I reach for, and Golden Oak, while it is a color I can use, it's not the type of shade that I think I find the most flattering on my skin tone, and is not the sort of thing that I gravitate toward the most. So I'm going to go ahead and declutter Golden Oak. So somewhat similar in tone to Mahogany is this one. This is the AOA Studios Venetian Romance Creamy Blush, or Creamy Blush in the shade Duchess. I had a few of these. I decluttered the other ones to a friend and then kept this one because this is a shade of blush I don't see very often. There is a murky grunginess to this mauve that I find very, very appealing. There's a lot of pigment in this, but this also blends out very nicely. It's not quite as lightweight on the skin as the Color Flush liquid blushes, but it's still very, very pretty, very blendable. I think this one has a little bit more saturation and a little bit more warmth to it than the Mahogany does. But I really enjoy this. I don't think I necessarily need both of these. But when was this ever about need? I'm going to go ahead and keep both of them. Let's take a look at my two ColourPop blushes. These are both Super Shock blushes. I have one in their shimmer formula and one in their matte formula. The shimmer formula probably looks familiar to you if you follow my channel. This is Drop of a Hat, and this is the Super Shock blush that I have been trying to finish all year long. I have come such a long way, but at this point, I don't think I'm quite going to be able to finish it. I had to scrape everything out of the corners because it was getting hard to use, and I've tried to press that down into the bottom of the pan to make it a little bit more accessible. We're so close, but I don't think we're going to hit my goal. I'm not terribly broken up because this is just such a gorgeous blush. This is, I don't know, I think this is probably my favorite blush ever. This is a beautiful peachy pink with a golden shimmer through it. It is just, this just always hits right. It always hits right. Look how pretty that is. And that glow is just something else. Really enjoy this blush so much. We'll definitely be hanging on to it. I'm not quite as thrilled with the other Super Shock in my collection. This is the Birthday Suit Super Shock. They call it a satin Super Shock, but I don't find it satin at all. I find it matte. It is just matte. And this thing is so dry. It is significantly newer in my collection than this Super Shock. But this one, I've already had to rehydrate it a couple of times with Inglot Duraline just to make it usable, but it's like putty. It is just so difficult to get it to apply. I think I'm going to go ahead and declutter this one. All right, I have some kind of no-name blushes here. These are not Rare Beauty blushes, despite the fact that they look like them. These are little no-name Amazon knockoffs of the Rare Beauty blush. So I have 3 shades here. These are actually not all the same brand. This one is called Lake Rain. It's from Lake Rain Beauty. And this one is Dan Visit. So I am going to go ahead and hang on to this. I actually really, really enjoy this blush in this particular color. The formula, it is not a formula dupe for Rare Beauty. It is not nearly as pigmented as the Rare Beauty blushes, but I actually prefer that. I prefer if there is a little bit of translucency to my cheek products so that I can build it rather than having to like mitigate the situation and knock back some of the intensity. I'd rather start small and build up. And this formula allows me to do that. I also find it's just a really flattering color on my skin tone. So I'm going to go ahead and hang on to this one. And then these ones, I think I'm going to go ahead and declutter both of these. First of all, this one is again that kind of very vivid, cool pink that I just don't gravitate towards. And then this one here, it's kind of nothing on my skin, to be honest. It's just the slightest hint of pink. And I feel like if I was more blush shy, this might be the sort of thing that I enjoy, but I'm really not. I'm kind of all into the blush. And I really like something that has a little bit more impact than this one. So yeah, I'm going to go ahead and declutter both of these. The last little Amazon knockoff I have here is the brand Beauty Glazed. It's got one of the poofies on the end. This one actually is kind of nice because you can open and close it, and that's not always the case with these little poofy makeups. But again, you can see the similarity between this one and Golden Oak and the Dan Visit. These are all those very vivid, cooler pinks that they're not my favorite. I'm just not into the really vivid pink. And so, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and let this one go as well. These I very much picked up more as experimentation. I kind of feel like I discovered blush just last year. And so I started experimenting with all of the different colors that I could get my hands on. Now I have kind of whittled it down to what I feel like I really like the most. And this type of color just is not my thing. All right, now that we've gotten the knockoffs out of the way, I actually have two of the real deal. So this is the Charlotte Tilbury Beauty Light Wand. This is the Glowgasm in Pinkgasm, and this is the Pillow Talk Matte Beauty Blush Wand in the shade Peach Pop. Pinkgasm is just, I can't tell you how much I enjoy this. It's so shimmery and beautiful, and it blends out so well on the cheeks. It's just a gorgeous glowy blush. I couldn't ask for anything more. It really does vibe quite a lot like my ColourPop. The ColourPop is definitely warmer than the Pinkgasm is, but they definitely have the same really strong glow. I really enjoy this type of blush. Definitely hanging on to this one. Now this is a matte blush. I don't have a ton of matte blushes in my collection, and this one is also very vivid. This is a bright kind of peachy coral color, which wouldn't normally be my thing. However, I find this to be really, really flattering during the summer on kind of more tan skin. It is a very, very summery shade for me, and I really enjoy it in that capacity. So I'm going to go ahead and hang on to this one as well. Despite the fact that it is a matte formula, it is not matte. It still has the luminosity of a cream product, and I appreciate that. Oh my gosh, I'm getting to the point where the makeup wipes aren't quite doing the trick anymore. We are almost done though. This is my last cream product. This is the Wander Beauty On the Glow Blush and Illuminator. So this is a little duo that has a blush in the shade Bear. This is that really pretty kind of mauve color that I really, really enjoy. It is a very, very nice formula. I do find that it does set down. It does not stay terribly tacky on the skin. It is really, really pretty, blends out beautifully. Really enjoy this particular blush. On the other end, we have the Illuminator in Nude Glow. I actually don't use this illuminator very often, so I do classify this as a blush simply because that's what I tend to reach for the most, but it is a nice highlighter. So yeah, definitely hanging on to this one. All right, the rest of these are my powder blushes. Let's talk about my Essence Pure Nude Baked Blushes. I have the shade Bold Heart, which is a more peachy shade, and Berry Cheeks, which is a little bit more of a cooler berry shade, as the name would suggest. Now, this was interesting because I was watching Ruth Foley talk about the blush that she had in this line and how she eventually decluttered it because it was just a little too sparkly for her. And I'm wondering if that's a shade dependent thing because there is zero sparkle in the two shades that I have. I can't remember which shade she had, but it wasn't either of these. Let's swatch these two out for you. I think what Ruth was hoping that hers would be was more of an hourglass type soft luminosity, a little bit highlighty, but not super blingy. And that, I have to admit, that's exactly what I have here. These I have them swatched pretty heavily here, but these blend out really beautifully on the skin. And as you can see, there is zero sparkle in either of these shades. There is just that soft, glowy luminosity. It's not nearly as strong a highlight as my Pinkgasm or my Super Shock blush. It's just that really soft candlelit glow that you would expect from a brand like Hourglass. This is such a beautiful formula. I think these are some of the best blushes that are available in the drugstore right now. It's sad to me that it sounds like they're not necessarily consistent as far as the formula goes from shade to shade, but I'm really, really happy with the two shades that I have, and I'm going to hang on to both of these. Very much along similar lines to these two is this blush. This is the only blush that I have permitted myself to buy this entire year, and I picked it up during a Black Friday sale. This is the Milani, Baked Powder Blush in the shade 05 Luminoso. This is such a classic. I have owned this before, but it shattered everywhere and I had to get rid of it. And I have missed it ever since. So I finally, during the Ulta's Black Friday sale, or was it their Cyber Monday sale? One of the two, I went ahead and picked up another one of these. Now, I feel like this is very similar to the Essence, but just with a little bit more luminosity. I almost feel like Drop of a Hat is like the amped up version of Luminoso. Now, people were crazy about Luminoso back in the day, and for good reason. It is just such a pretty blush. There has never been a time that I haven't put this on and just thought to myself, gosh, that's gorgeous. I love how it applies. It is such an elevated formula, similar to the Essence blushes. If you were to take any one of these three blushes, depot them, and then put them in high-end packaging and give them to me as a new release from any high-end brand, I wouldn't bat an eyelash. These are really, really beautiful, elevated formulas. I just enjoy this blush so much, and I am incredibly pleased to have it back in my collection. Next, I have my only two matte powder blushes. This is my Pat McGrath, let's see, what is it called? Skin Fetish Divine Blush in the shade Nude Venus 2. Now, compared to my other blushes, this one is much more subtle, but it is a shade that I really, really enjoy and find flattering. I don't think it's gonna swatch well on how red my hand is. I'm actually gonna try it on this hand. So that's the shade. It's kind of that cooler, dusty shade that I really, really enjoy. Now, it does look matte in the pan, but there is a little bit of a satin sheen to it. But my favorite, oh no, shoot. What have I done? Oh my goodness. It was bound to happen. Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, I'm not going to worry about that for right now. I just wanted to show you these two layered on top of each other. The Becca just gives it a little bit more luminosity. Do you see that? Oh, it's just so pretty. It is so pretty. I feel like that level of glow is very similar to the Milani. This is just a more cool shade where this one runs a little bit warmer. Super pretty. Gonna hang on to that one. Last blush. This is one of the older blushes in my collection. This was a gift from a friend. This is a Lancome blush in the shade Shimmer Pink Fling. And it is that bright bubblegum pink that everybody was wild about there for a while. That's not going to make a good swatch. Let's do it on the other hand. I had a ColourPop blush that I decluttered a little bit earlier this year that was very much like this, but less pigmented. I do feel like this kind of vibrant, cool pink is a lot like these ones that I'm decluttering here. However, I think I'm going to hang on to this one. There are some instances in which I like to apply kind of a deeper, less saturated blush on the rest of my cheeks and then just add just a hint of this one on just the apples of the cheeks. And I think that that can create a really pretty effect. And I feel like this formula layers quite a bit better than any of these cream or liquid options for that particular purpose. So for that reason, I'm going to hang on to this one as well. All right. So where does that leave us? Okay. We are decluttering 6 blushes and we are keeping 15. So we are decluttering 6 and we're keeping 15, including the Salt New York cheek and lip tint that I don't have with me right now. That cuts my blushes by a little over a fourth. I'm pretty happy with that. This is a category that I felt did get a little bit overgrown while I was doing a lot of experimenting with different formulas and different colors. And now that I understand a little bit better what formulas I prefer and what colors I prefer, we can narrow it down a little bit more to the blushes that I just really enjoy. There we go. Fits a lot better into my container as well. So that is it for, oh my gosh, look at the back of my hand. Look how red it is. That is it for my cheek products. Thank you so much for spending this time with me. I will be back at you soon with more decluttering goodness. So I hope I will see you in the next one. Bye.